Welcome to Unfiltered and Unstoppable with Romesburg. Real strategies for real advisors, a podcast that dives into what it takes to scale a thriving financial practice. Each week, we'll discuss actionable strategies, tools, and insights to keep you ahead in today's financial landscape. From innovative products and powerful marketing tactics, you'll get unfiltered truth and unstoppable strategies. Let's get started by building your unstoppable financial practice today.
Every summer, without fail, there's a quiet panic that starts to creep into the industry, specifically with financial advisors. It's not loud, it's not obvious. If you've been doing this long enough, you've heard it, you've seen it, you've felt it. Calendar looks fine, clients are taken care of, but underneath it all, your pipeline is starting to thin out. And unfortunately, you might not notice really truly until September hits. And then all of a sudden, you've got this uphill finish that you're trying to sprint at the end of the year. And I'll give you a real example. I talked with an advisor last July. I'll never forget. Great advisor, really smart dude, hard worker, great firm. He just said, "Rob, I don't get it, man. I feel like I'm working, but nothing's really moving." So when we took a look at his business, we broke everything down. It was clear as day. He didn't have an actual system. Everything he relied on was him making the calls, him following up, him creating the next opportunity. And then when all of that energy dipped, when life got busy and summer hit and the lake was calling and family was asking that let's go fishing, all of a sudden business started to slow down with him. And that's the trap. Um, because most advisors don't have a growth problem. They have a dependency problem, meaning the business is fully 100% dependent on them. And today we are going to show you how to break that. I'm your host, Rob Romesburg. I work with financial advisors all across the country, helping them to grow, scale, build businesses that don't rely on them being in the middle of everything. Because I've seen exactly just like the story that I went through, how when everything runs through you, you don't actually own a business. Unfortunately, the business owns you. And today's not going to be about doing more marketing. Let's be clear. You're already doing too much, would be my opinion. This is all about building something that actually works. Um, Even when you're not thinking about it, even when you're on vacation, even when you're focused on your clients. We're going to be talking in great detail today about building a 3-month marketing funnel. And to break this down the right way and to illustrate how this all really needs to operate, I've got Graham Turner, president with Snappy Kraken. And for those that are unfamiliar with Snappy Kraken, it's a marketing platform that helps financial advisors stay consistent and automate their outreach without having to build everything from scratch, which is awesome. Graham, man, welcome to the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, man. So, Graham, I'm sure you've seen thousands of advisors try to figure this all out. Some get it right, most don't, if we're being honest. I'm really excited for this show today because this is really where advisors either separate themselves or just quietly fall behind. And so, Graham, let me just ask you this right out of the gate. When when you look at advisors who are consistently growing and the ones that feel stuck or inconsistent, what would you say is the biggest gap between those two groups?
Yeah, great question. So I'll give you a real world example. And I was talking with an advisor 2 weeks ago. and he lives out in Wyoming. And the reason he lives in Wyoming is he loves nature and to spend time in nature with his family. And he asked me a really similar question, which is why when I stop sending emails or text messages or posting on social media, does it feel like the business stops? And my response to him was trading time for money is a losing game. And when you have other things in life that you want to do, maybe you have a family, you have hobbies, you go to church, whatever those things are, your time is limited. And unless you're making the decision to work 80 to 100 hours a week, in which case you're sacrificing those other things you want to do, you're the only dependency on your business growing. And when we were talking, he asked me what the solution was, and the solution in my mind, what I've seen work, is to have a system. And a system doesn't mean you have 58 different components cobbled together that you're managing and paying different subscription fees for. It means you have a system that works for your business. And for some people, that means, you know, having a subscription where emails are being sent out, social media is being posted, text messages are being sent, you have a website. And I would say that's kind of the base. Other people want to have more complexity or maybe spend more budget on things like lead generation or events. Those are totally fine. And it's really dependent on having the right system for the right advisor, whereby if they do choose to go to the lake for July 4th, the business doesn't grind to a halt just because they're out of the office. It's always working in the background to be able to automate nurturing prospects, ensuring that the content they're getting is the right content for that particular segment and that particular target audience, and just being able to have some sort of motion and momentum and inertia behind the scenes that isn't fully dependent on you making calls.
Yeah. And that's all great stuff. Let me ask you this. Why do you think most advisors struggle with marketing consistency, especially during the summer? Actually, let me reword it. Why do you think the advisors that are struggling struggle with marketing consistency?
I think there's really kind of twofold. The first would be I'm an advisor and I'm also a brilliant marketer, and everything that I'm going to send has to be from my brain.
Uh-huh.
And that's one that I see a lot. And
Sure.
they may be brilliant marketers. Most of them aren't quite as brilliant as they may think, and that's totally fine. I'm sure we all think of ourselves as good at things that we might not be so good at. And then the second one would be, um, I don't trust technology, or I don't understand technology, and I've used something in the past, maybe 10 years ago, and the salesperson told me it was going to be great, and it didn't work as I had anticipated, and so I've completely written off tech solutions, marketing automation. I'm never going to go down that path again. And so sometimes those play together, and sometimes they're completely different. But those are kind of the two cases that I've seen most frequently.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally see that. The thing is that the ones that are struggling, in my opinion, they don't necessarily have a lead problem. It's more of a system problem, right? And they're relying on a one-off campaign, random posts, last-minute seminars. Man, I'm struggling. I better throw together this seminar. And man, Christmas is next month, and I better get it in November. But then there's Thanksgiving, and and instead of building something that is running on its own machine, meaning whether the advisor is working or not, the reality is, if your marketing's only working when you're working, that's not a system, man. That it's a job, and the job doesn't scale. And as I already said earlier, the business owns you, which is even worse, man. Like you've got all the stress of I need the production and I've got the staff, and then all of a sudden now the marketing's not working, and that's what we mean by the business owning you. So the, the thing that I hear a lot about a marketing funnel is like, I don't really understand what does a funnel mean? And for whatever reason, that word throws people off. Could you break down what is a 3-month automated funnel really?
Sure. So at the very top of the funnel, that's going to be your broadest section, right? So think about that as anybody within your market that you could see becoming a client of yours at some point in the future.
Sure.
And then as that funnel thins out, consider it almost like a inverted triangle. I'm sure everyone knows what a funnel is, but as prospects engage with your content or engage with you more consistently, inevitably some will drop out of that funnel, meaning that they don't believe that they are going to be a fit for your practice. And that is completely fine. Nobody has 100% conversion rates.
Mhm.
The important thing is that you measure those conversion rates by stage of the funnel. So what I mean by that is very top of the funnel, broadest base. Okay, next segment are people that have chosen to engage with your content, but maybe are not ready to become a client yet. And then the skinniest, thinnest version at the bottom of the funnel, maybe you booked a discovery meeting or a sales call. And then after that sales call or discovery meeting, they're going to choose to become a client or not become a client. And so, of course, the volume is going to get smaller the further down the funnel you go. And where I see advisors maybe have a lot of questions or not know certain things is, well, what is the actual measurability? And it's funny because it's such a numbers based industry, and yet we don't apply that same rigor and logic to marketing. It's sort of like, I've created a campaign, I'm going to send it. Hopefully it works. And, hope is not a strategy.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Unfortunately, I've seen a lot of hope try to be a strategy over my years in the business. And the thing is that once again, if you are running a business, the last thing you need is more complexity. You need more clarity, and so a funnel is not necessarily tech. It can be. Tech can definitely help, but it doesn't necessarily mean, oh my gosh, I better have technology involved. Would it help your business? For sure. It's not necessarily a software. A funnel really is a controlled conversation over time. That's really what a funnel is. That's it. And instead of hoping, as we already just said, a prospect figures you out, you are guiding them. Meaning you're guiding them from, I've never heard of you, to, hey, now I trust you enough to have a conversation. And this is where, unfortunately, the advisors that are struggling are losing people. Not because they're bad at what they do, but because there's no structure before the initial meeting. And we'll touch on that more here in a moment. But I actually just had an advisor tell me recently, I get people to the first meeting, but they're not moving forward. Like, I'm having lots of first meetings. And so I asked him, I said, hey, what are you doing before the first meeting? Meaning, what did that prospect experience before the first meeting? And you'll be shocked to know that it was silence, meaning there was no nurture, no positioning, just the prospect just showed up curious, kind of blind to anything and everything, and definitely not convinced. And that's a huge gap. So let me ask you this, Graham. Why is it important that a prospect has a positive experience before the first meeting even takes place?
Well, I think the bulk of the value is twofold. Number one, if you put yourself in the prospect's shoes, they want to understand if you might be a good fit as an advisor.
Yeah.
So what they're looking for is this brand authentic? Is this person real? Do they have the same qualities and values that I hold dear to myself? And then the other side of that is, do they have the right knowledge and experience and expertise for the problem that I'm trying to solve? And every person that you talk to that's coming into your office has a problem in mind that they are trying to solve. And the value of marketing is identifying and teasing out what that problem is ahead of that first conversation you're having in real time.
Mhm.
So, as an example, if you're talking to someone who is, call it 55, and they're really concerned about having enough savings for retirement, if we send out 3 different campaigns, one is saving for your child's tuition, one is saving for retirement, and one is exiting as a business owner, chances are they're going to open and engage with the content. Do you have enough savings for retirement? And so being able to track and understand that ahead of the first conversation you might have with the prospect allows you to much more cleanly tailor that first conversation so that you're not talking about a bunch of irrelevant concepts or content to them that they don't have any interest about, but they're too polite to interrupt you. So they sit there silently nodding and smiling. But in the back of their mind, they're thinking, why am I listening to this? Why can't I go find an advisor that already understands what my concerns are, what my hopes and dreams are? And so it allows that first conversation to be much more tailored, much more relevant, and frankly, much more engaging.
Yeah, you are exactly right. We have a risk tolerance tool that we use that we call the color money risk analysis, and this is a tool that we highly encourage be introduced. Just to use seminar as an example, the second an individual registers for my seminar, they are receiving immediately a link for them to complete their color money risk analysis. That's before they've even attended the seminar. That's definitely before they came in for the first appointment, because I want them to have a great understanding of the tools that we will provide them to make sure that they have a secure retirement. And the more that you can foster that education and help them understand your process, the quicker and more comfortable that they'll become in order to move forward sooner rather than later. You said a term earlier. Was it brand awareness, brand authentic? What did you say earlier?
I think it was authenticity.
Yeah, go get into that in a little greater detail. That was really interesting.
Sure. So this is a human based business. This is a relationship driven industry. And unless you are completely on the edges and choosing to just use, a robo advisor or manage your own money, you are trusting another human being with your life savings. And ultimately, what that means is your future if you are a prospect or a client of a financial advisor. And without understanding who that advisor is, what hobbies do they have? What interests do they have? What values do they hold? What's their experience level? What type of people do they work with? Why would you expect them to hand over their 401k, life saving, kids tuition, the nest egg that they've accrued and worked so hard to build over time? Like, you are a human that is talking to another human being. And some of us are really, really good at that when you're face to face with somebody, but really struggle in translating that to marketing content. And so you can choose any financial advisor's website, go out there, just Google search financial advisor near me, click on the first one.
Yeah.
How good is that advisor at illustrating what's important to them, what they actually care about? It's not just a bio, a paragraph in a biography that says, I love hanging out with my wife and I like fishing. That doesn't tell me anything. Okay. What's your experience? What do you get involved with on the weekends? What do you care about? What's important to you? What's not important to you? Why do you love doing this? And so all those different human components, I think people are a little bit afraid to put out there because maybe they're afraid of the reaction, or maybe they're afraid of getting negative feedback. Chances are, if somebody doesn't identify with you or doesn't espouse the same values, they're just going to close the website, or they're just going to, delete the email. It's not that deep. And so don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Be authentically you. And I think what you're going to find is people who identify with that and like that are going to start talking to you on a much higher volume. And you're not going to want to work with the people that, you don't share values with anyway.
Yeah, you're exactly right. That's some great stuff right there. One of my previous podcasts, one of my advisors was going through how she takes advantage of our divorce transition checklist, and she exactly what you just said, put herself out there about making sure that divorcees specifically knew that it's her heart and her passion to work with those that are going through a divorce. And 7 of her top 10 clients this year have come from that. And when you can be authentic, as you're saying, because she did go through a kind of a ugly divorce, and she authentically put that out there, and bam, right away, she had a brand new client base, prospect base, and now she's seeing great residuals come from that, referrals coming through the roof. If you don't mind, walk us through this. If I were an advisor and I wanted to build a simple 3-month funnel heading into the summer, what would that look like? What are some of the key pieces that I need to make sure I'm putting together?
The first thing I would look at, and I'm surprised that more advisors don't do this, but
Mhm.
which of your clients that you have today are your best clients? And when I say best, I mean to be vague because maybe they provide you the most financial value. Maybe when their name pops up on caller ID, you can't wait to talk to them. Maybe you even hang out with them on, evenings and weekends, or you're part of the same golf club or whatever those things are. Just think about the best clients that you have. Okay, what qualities do they have? What are their demographics? Why did they come to you in the first place? And then how would I be able to leverage that insight into my marketing? Right. So,
Yeah.
thinking about, you provided a great example. Divorce transition is a really scary thing,
Mhm.
and it shouldn't be because 50% of all marriages end in divorce. So,
Mhm.
that's a great market if that's something that you're interested in going after because it's underserved.
Mhm.
Um, just as a quick aside, I was on a panel at a conference, and you never really know who your fellow panelists are before you get there. So it's always a bit of an adventure.
Yeah.
And it was this young woman, and she was talking about her target niche. And her target niche was sex workers. And I had never
Wow.
heard of that one before. But she used to be a dancer at a club,
Uh-huh.
and she realized that these women were making money hand over fist, and none of them were comfortable enough to talk to a financial advisor because they were all like, sailboat, couple walking along the beach, and none of them really spoke to,
For
that
sure. Yeah.
market. And so it was really fascinating. I was completely taken aback sitting on this panel
Uh-huh.
here talking about marketing strategies. But she hit I was fascinated by what she had to talk about. So that's an extreme example of, the thing that I just said. But
Yeah.
who are the clients that you really, feel are your best? And then what are the anecdotes? What are the little snippets that you're hearing from them as you're having the conversations? I'm really worried about this. I'm really excited about that. I really love talking to you because every time we talk, you solve this problem for me.
For
That
sure.
is marketing gold. That is such treasure. And if you can begin to leverage that in either client testimonials or even your brand messaging as you're sending out content, those are things that you have seen work
Yeah.
where you're not just guessing. It is a real client who is telling you why they value you as an advisor. And the more of those best clients you can start to bring in, your life suddenly gets quite a bit better because you enjoy talking to them. You feel confident in being able to solve their problems. And so having that work at scale means that you are not the one sending out email by email, call by call. It is, I'm going to build this once and deploy it everywhere. And suddenly your business is scaling in a way that you probably didn't see it scale beforehand because it's not just dependent on you doing all of the actions. There is gold within your brain that I don't know, but being able to take that gold and make it scale is how this system is going to operate for you over the summer without you necessarily having to get off the boat because there's fish in that lake.
Yeah. I love it, man. I was talking to you earlier about, I'm looking to really expand the podcast to get some more followers. And you're like, hey, let's talk about sex workers. So, I mean, that's probably going to get it done.
You know what? If nothing else, this will be the episode of your podcast where a guest came on and talked about sex workers. So
Yeah, right,
take
right.
that as a badge of honor.
Or it gets banned off YouTube. Who knows how this stuff works?
Oh, there's way worse stuff on YouTube. I wouldn't worry about that. Not that I would know, but yeah.
Yeah, right. Hey, so actual practical application to a 3-month funnel. You hit the nail on the head, man. So one of the very first things is it's all about getting attention. So the first month out there, you want to make sure that your current clients really know what's going on. And this is where most advisors get it wrong, as you've already said. You don't want to try to sound too smart. Don't try to get too crazy with it. You want to sound relatable. You want to make sure you're relatable to who's your consistent top favorite client base, and the things that work in that area. Simple questions, um emotional entry points. We talked about the divorce transition, real life problems. Once again, we're talking about the divorce transition there, but we're not going to get into product performance. Keep that all out of your marketing funnel, because nobody's, with all due respect, nobody's waking up thinking, "Man, I can't wait to talk to a financial advisor." That's not what they're thinking. What they're thinking is, "Am I okay? Is my retirement okay? Are my kids going to be okay if something happens to me?" That's what they're thinking. And then when you get into month 2 of your funnel, you really drive that all in with trust, because and this is where what I have seen with my top advisors, this is really when they separate and they make that gap, because attention's the easy part, but trust is really where this is all won. That this is really where prospects start to watch, and when their belief starts to get built. So now you're going to get into some stories in month 2, examples, um, things along the lines of, here's what we see every day, and here's what we solve for. This is really where your positioning really comes into play. This is where your positioning really happens. You're not going to be saying, "I'm great, look at us," but you're going to be going through these scenarios of the solutions by helping these individuals not only relate, but helping them to see things differently. And then in that third month, it's all about action. So hopefully by now they're ready, right? But don't make the mistake. Don't ask too early, and definitely don't ask too vaguely. Let us know if you'd like to talk. That's not doing anything. That's a very vague closing statement. That doesn't move anyone. Instead, hey, you know what? You were talking about Social Security. We have a specific webinar on that. I'd like to share that with you. After you've watched the webinar, let's set up a time for you to come in the office so I can really answer the questions that you might have. Start talking to them about their specific problems, their specific outcome. Let's give them a reason to act. That's what we want to do in that third month. Now, as I think about this, let's pause here for a second. Most of you that are listening, most of the advisors that are listening, yeah, you know what? This all sounds good, but I don't have time or knowledge to be able to build all of this. And I get it, totally understand, but we've got to be honest about what's actually happening here, because you're already spending the time. You're just spending it reactively, and that's the worst thing that you can do, because you're chasing follow-ups. You're trying to restart cold conversations, and then all of a sudden you're sitting here like, "Man, why is everything so inconsistent?" And all of that is time you're wasting. And then now you just aren't feeling productive. And so the question, and you've got to be honest with yourself, it's not, do I have time to build a system? The real question is, how much time am I wasting without one? Because once this is built, and I've seen it time and time again, I know Graham has, once it's built, you're not starting from zero every week. When you start from zero every week, that's when you're exhausted. That's when you just like are overwhelmed. Instead of starting from zero, you're starting with momentum. You're coming in on that Monday and you're just ready to crush. Graham, do you agree with that? If so, could you kind of expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, it all comes down to the idea of what's the value of a lead. So what I mean by that is I can have 800 leads that have no value. I can have 50 leads that are tremendously valuable.
Yeah.
And the idea behind that is, what are the things I'm doing along the way to be able to bring that lead from, maybe they've heard about me because of their referral and their friend is using me and they love me, or I bought a list of leads, or I'm using a lead gen platform, and it can be anywhere in between. At the end of the day, you hit on a really important point in what you said previously, which is you need to bring them to the idea that A, you understand the problem that they're trying to solve, and that B, you are the person to solve that problem for them. And when you ask to meet too early, it's like, you're on a third date and you ask someone to marry you. It's like, that's not going to work, even if they like you. So slow down a little bit and bring them through the right path. And so you can have 50 incredibly high quality leads that are engaging with your content, that are exactly in your ideal segment, that are ready to talk to you when you get back in September, and they've already engaged with you throughout the summer. And maybe you didn't even know that they engaged with you because you built the system behind the scenes to nurture them along the way. But at the end of the day, like, great marketing exists between two very extreme parameters. Either you were inspiring fear or you were inspiring hope. And you can choose where along that line in which you want to live. But if you think about like Nike, nobody nobody sitting on the couch usually is going to strap on a pair of Jordans and be like Anthony Edwards. But Nike would have you believe that that's the only thing standing between you and playing in the NBA. And then the flip side of that is, do you know where your kids are, which is inspiring fear. And so if you want to be the advisor that's coming in, building the right system to inspire hope and inspire peace of mind, it's, hey, the message, like you said, isn't pick up the phone and call me. It's, let's talk about how we're going to ensure that your kid's tuition is in safe hands, or that your kid can choose which university or which college to go to and there's no financial limitations. And so that gets the prospect starting to think, wow, this person really understands what my problem is. And that's where really the system comes into play. So I want to make sure that your watchers and your listeners are able to take away, okay, yeah, they're talking about concepts. What am I actually going to do out the back of this? It's understand who you're trying to market to, understand what the content is, and don't feel like you have to do it all yourself. Like, building content is very time consuming. And frankly, I've seen a lot of advisors build their own content and it's not the greatest, but kudos for trying. Like, engage with somebody as a partner who can help you build this system and build this content so that you can take time for yourself and take time for your family, because that stuff is really important.
Yeah. We actually did have an advisor build this out, but he didn't do anything complicated. And what was awesome about it was within 90 days, he stopped asking, where are these leads coming from? And then he started asking, which ones do I want to work with? And you talked about it. That's the shift. That's what we're talking about. And in my opinion, and I think where a lot of advisors get this wrong is that they just try to take it all on themselves. And if I'm going to be blunt here, this is where you sabotage yourself, because those that are chasing too many ideas, chasing that bouncy, shiny rubber ball, they're switching strategies too fast. They're expecting immediate results. Like, man, I tried that, it didn't work. Well, how long did you try it? How many times did you try? Did you try to really implement the processes? And the biggest mistake is you quit before it actually compounds, before it actually has an opportunity to work. Because trust takes time, and inconsistency kills momentum. And that's where you lose. If you aren't working the system or allowing the system to work itself, that's where you're killing the momentum, because the trust wasn't allowed to work. So when these types of things start to work, what's actually changing in your business, what actually everything starts to shift, because you're no longer convincing people, you're going to be confirming what they already believe. So you're no longer chasing, you're attracting. And you're going to notice right away that your conversations get easier, your pipeline is more full, it's stronger, your time opens up even though you've got such a full pipeline. And then that's when swagger steps in. Then that's when your confidence changes. And because now you're no longer guessing. Now you've got a real system. You've got something that's really running on its own. And I'm just going to be straight up. I'm just going to be direct here for a second. If your pipeline is inconsistent, it's not a lead problem. That's a discipline and structure problem. Because I promise you, there are advisors right now in your exact market talking to the same exact people, and their business is growing. The difference isn't opportunity as much as it is execution. So, Graham, if you're an advisor listening right now, what would you say the first step that they should take this week?
Well, I'll give you two data points on things that you just mentioned. So number one, 98% of prospects are not ready to meet with an advisor when they get the first contact. So if you're expecting, I'm going to send out an email or I'm going to post something on LinkedIn and I'm going to have this group of people who are going to indicate that they want to set up a discovery meeting, that ain't going to happen. It's just the data shows they're not ready. And frankly speaking, I tend to agree with that anecdotally. The other thing is consistency, which you mentioned. So on average, it takes between 6 to 12 touch points between an advisor and a prospect before that prospect is ready to have a meeting. So if you, again, are expecting to send something out and get this flood back of interest, probably not going to happen. However, if you have a consistent, scalable system that's working on your behalf, where you are able to engage with a prospect 6 to 12 times. Again, this is not you directly doing the action, but the system is working on your behalf on the background, whereby let's say you set something up in June and over the course of those 3 months, the prospect gets 6 emails, 3 social posts, 3 text messages, and a phone call at the end of it just to convert them into the last stage. That is a system that now works. Now, how much work did you have to do? Yeah, there's some work to do the setup up front, but now the system is working on your behalf. The last action you have to do is pick up the phone and call them because they said that they wanted you to call them. So that's what I mean by, like, you can do all of the things that you were doing before and probably do them better because it's consistent and it's repeatable. But you can save yourself so much time and energy and anxiety, and to drive to what you were saying, consistency, right? You can set up this calendar for yourself ahead of time over the next 3 months and segment and make sure that the right touch points are going out at the right times. You don't have to touch anything after it's all set up. It's just going to run in the background. And so my goal, and I think with you, is to make sure that calendars are full in September once people actually are ready and come back from the lake house or come back from vacation. This is how this is going to work, because I promise you at some point in Sunday, 10 a.m., as they're flipping through their iPad, that old piece of anxiety is going to come back, which is, have I saved enough for retirement? And if your content is the first thing that they see, which directly addresses that need, they're probably going to be pretty engaged and be pretty interested. And the more consistent you can get with that, the more they're going to start thinking about it. And the more they start thinking about it, the likelier they are to call you.
You're exactly right. I'll say this: if those are listening, take nothing else from today. They could start here, really simple. Just pick one problem that your clients that you already have on that you know that they're already thinking about. Meaning, why did they become a client? That's a very simple way to start. Then build from there. Build 3 to 5 pieces of content, add a short email sequence, and then a clear next step. That's it. You don't need to overbuild. You don't need to, oh my gosh, create a brand new marketing system. You're just building something that runs. Now, with that being said, I can't believe how fast time goes here. Graham, we're getting ready to wrap up here. So for those that are listening and they're thinking, all right, man, I know I need to get more consistent with this stuff. However, I'm not even sure where to start. If they're looking for help putting something together like this in place, how would Snappy Kraken support advisors actually doing this?
You really teed me up there. All of the things that we've been talking about, right? So
Yeah.
what is your brand? What is your target audience? What are the different messages that are going to resonate? How do I drive consistency? So one of the things that I'm really proud of that we built is a concept called speed to lead. So what that means is a lead gets generated either through a webinar, seminar, referral, maybe from a lead generation platform that you're working with. In under 5 minutes, we are able to ingest that lead into the platform, segment it across what is their investable assets, what's their age, what lead source did they come from, and then automatically enter that into a campaign nurturing sequence whereby they're going to get those 6 to 12 touch points over the course of 12 to 14 weeks. And again, you don't have to think about it, right? So this is a system that we built that takes leads from outside our platform, segments them by all the different criteria that we know from that contact record, and then is able to automatically engage them into the right relevant content that then they're going to get over the next 3 months. And so when I hear a lot of advisors talk about why they chose to work with us and how they've experienced success, a lot of it is I was either spending 25 hours a week creating all this marketing content and I didn't have time to do that anymore, versus I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a mix of both. I will say, as firms grow in scale, and really $1 million AUM is the threshold, whereby before that threshold or underneath that threshold, chances are the leads that you're getting are unique to you. So maybe that's someone in your network, someone in your community, someone that plays on your kid's soccer team, whatever that thing is. After you cross that threshold, every lead, every prospect that you talk to, chances are they are in another advisor's CRM. And so that's where the speed to lead competitive advantage comes into play. So our job is to help advisors every single day understand more about the prospects that are engaging with the content, either the content that we create or the content the advisor creates, or the content that the fantastic folks at Loose on Gradient create. And then we're able to understand that contact behavior, and we do all the heavy lifting in the background. So we work with advisors that scale from I'm an expert marketer and I just need help scaling to I've never marketed a day before in my life. I don't know where to start. Do you have people to help me build out my marketing plan, and everywhere in between? So if that's a problem that you're trying to solve for, especially in advance of the summer, we'd love to talk to you. We have a great relationship with these folks, and we just want to see advisors succeed at the end of the day.
I love it, man. Well, Graham, I really appreciate you taking the time to not only hop on my podcast, but also spending such a great deal of your time with Loose On. And we are really looking forward to the relationship. But seriously, man, thanks so much. Appreciate you. And but before we wrap up, to every financial advisor listening, just always like to end each episode with a thank you, because what you do goes well beyond the numbers. You are helping people make decisions that they don't fully understand, and during moments that matter the most, and most of the time, it's even during some distress. And the thing is, what we're trying to say today is when you build better systems, you're not just growing your business, you are expanding how many people you help, and that really matters. And so here's the takeaway. Summer doesn't have to slow your business down. Don't let it. Your lack of structure is going to slow your business down. The advisors that are going to win in the second half of 2026, they are building momentum right now in April. Not by doing more, but by building something that is working without them literally putting effort and energy into it. The thing is when you build right systems, everything changes. Your pipeline becomes much more predictable, your conversations are better, your time opens up, but most importantly, you stop feeling like you're getting the life sucked out of you with your business. So here's what I'd like you to do. If this episode made you think, if it challenged you, if it gave you something that you can actually implement, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with your team. Share it with your firm. Send it to another advisor who's been struggling, because this is how you start changing the conversations inside your business. And if you're not already following the show, make sure you subscribe, because every episode we're putting out, it's definitely designed to help you think differently, operate differently, and ultimately grow differently. And so, as you could tell, no fluff here, no theory, just real strategies that actually work. And as you move forward from this, I want you to remember this. You don't need more ideas. You need better execution. You don't need so-called more activity. You need better structure. You don't have to definitely do everything yourself. You need to be building something that works without you. Those advisors that are winning, they're not doing more. They're just doing the right things consistently for longer than everyone else. So stay consistent, stay intentional, and most importantly, stay unfiltered and unstoppable. Talk soon. Graham, thanks again.
Thanks for having me.
The opinions herein may be from personal experience and may not necessarily be those of the Gradient Financial Group, its employees, or affiliates. Any results, topics, or outcomes are for informational purposes only. Financial professional use only. Rob Romesburg does not render tax, legal, or accounting advice and is not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any government agency.